Welcome, everyone. My name is Julie, and I am NETA's Executive Director. And I am so excited to be here with you all and kick off NETA's webinar series. We partner with Strive for our content creation piece. And so I am so privileged to introduce to you Alyssa, who kind of spearheads that for us. So Alyssa's going to take it away. Thanks.
Yes. Hey guys, thanks for joining. We're really excited to kind of kick off these webinars. We really wanted to be able to provide some content as an extension of our conference since we were not able to have it this year. And so we have kind of gathered all of just some great presentations that we had coming down the pipe anyways, and we're going to do them webinar style. And Taylor was gracious enough to be our first one, so we're really excited to have him. Taylor's doing a presentation for Class Intercom today, obviously called The Hidden Opportunity of Student-Generated Social Media. I know he's taken some time to make this relevant to kind of the world today, and we're really excited to have him share what he knows.
Awesome. Thanks, Alyssa, and thanks, Julie. Excited to kick this off. I'm super bummed, as I know all of you are, and especially Julie and Alyssa, that we couldn't have the conference, but no one is having conferences. So we're all in this together, and we just wrapped up a webinar talking about self-care. And I did want to talk about something, talk about this opportunity that is basically my mission in life, is to give students the opportunity to create social media that stems from my personal experience, and that's overflowed into starting Strive 8 years ago, which evolved into now starting and running Class Intercom with my co-founder Ben Pankinen. And so excited to share with you guys some things we've been learning through this time, and then also some things you guys can be thinking about for next school year, whatever that looks like. Every day is a new adventure in education, as we all know, and we're at the mercy of something we can't control, and that's this virus, but we can control, what our day looks like and how productive we are, and taking care of ourselves first, our kids, and our students and staff. And so I'm excited to kind of dive into this. I hope everyone is safe and staying at home, and I've got snow in the background here, but we'll go ahead and dive in to the presentation. I want to encourage you guys, we're at Class Intercom on social media, so if you guys want to connect or tweet during this, some takeaways, would love to see that on Twitter and connect with us and share what you're learning and what you're doing in regards to social media right now. I see a lot of really great tributes to seniors, and there's some really neat things, and I'll share a couple different ideas for you guys that you can be doing now, and then what you can kind of be thinking about when it comes to students in the future of creating content for your school and inviting them to be a part of the story at your school. So our story, I just wanted to kind of go through, actually began with a couple sticky notes. So I mentioned Ben and Strive, and started that back in 2012, helping schools live video stream their events. And that's crazy to think about that it's been that long. And I knew right away, in order for people to find out about these live streams, they needed to be told where to go. And social media was something I was really excited about and loved, connecting with folks across the United States and world. And social media is a great opportunity for that. And I wanted to help educate students and educators come together to create good social media content at their school and share out these events that they were doing. And so we started hosting these workshops and trainings for schools. And I invited Ben. His background is in banking and bank and financial, marketing and helping banks with their social media. I thought it would be great perspective to bring him in to talk to students and educators about social media and the landscape of that. And this is about 4 years ago. And we came across this problem at this conference, and that was really difficult to get students involved. And so it wasn't safe, and it wasn't easy to collaborate. It wasn't easy to coordinate with that. And so what ended up happening, and what we discovered at this event, was a principal actually had handed over a sticky note with the username and password to the school's Twitter account and said, here, this is the only way I know how to get you guys logged in. I trust you for sophomore gals to be able to share what's happening. And if something happens, we'll try to fix it afterwards. And that's okay. That was 4 years ago, but there's a better way. And we thought, gosh, there's got to be a better way. Ben had created this software to be able to help with banks approve content. And we took that, and I knew right away this was going to be a home run with schools if they wanted to get students involved at a really low cost. And it wasn't priced per student or anything like that. And so we've kind of been on this journey. I've been on this journey to get schools to understand that. And, we asked that question that day, what could go wrong with that sticky note? And if you're a tech director, tech integration person, administrator, lots of things could go wrong if you're sharing passwords on a sticky note. We thought there's got to be a better way. And that's what we've been on a journey and a vision to kind of cast to schools across the country and even internationally now. I was on a Zoom with someone in Thailand that runs international schools that wants to get students involved. So, and it all started here in Nebraska with Heather Callahan, who's on here, and Cameron Hudson, who's on the NETA board. And those were the first people I went to and said, hey, do you want to take a chance on this? And the reason they did, and this principal gave over those sticky notes, was because of the perspective the community has of a school. Typically, it's a very narrow view of what's actually happening in the school. That now has completely been blown up because school is happening in our homes, right? But this image here, typically, for some people, some of my neighbors might not have stepped foot into the building of a school for a long, long time, and they think school is the same way it was when they were there. And that's just not the reality. And social media allows us to break down those barriers and those walls to feel like people are there learning along with the students. And that's never been more important than now that school is happening in our homes and remotely. We're relying on parents, and we need to share out the stories. And that's why I wanted to do this, because I think this is an incredible opportunity. Yes, it is unfortunate, everything that's happening, but I tend to be a little bit more optimistic and think about what are all the awesome ways now we can use social media to showcase our students and some of the things they're doing, and our teachers, and thinking outside the box, right? We don't have this school building to go to. Social media is way more, even more important now than it ever was before. And so this is what our classrooms used to look like, right? There's some amazing stories happening in our hallways every day, and events, prom, graduation, all those different things. And those have all been stripped away from us without our doing. And now we have to think differently about what our content looks like, and we have to challenge our students to think differently, because now this is what school looks like. They're sitting on their couch, I've been on several Zooms with sixth graders all the way up to high school students across the country, and they're all over the place. They're in their room, their dog is coming in their Zoom chat, like, it's crazy, right? Yeah, but they still have ideas, they still are passionate about things. And so we're challenging students to do it, like a takeover day. We talked about that for several years. Have a student take your audience through on social media what it looks like for them each day, what they're having for breakfast, because we need that social connection. We need that community still for in our towns, right? And we've adopted this kind of phrase, be social at a distance. We still want to be social with folks, even though we can't come in contact face to face with people. We still want to know what's happening in each other's lives, and social media is a great way to do that. And we can capture that remotely, and you can use tools like Class Intercom or not to curate content for that. One of the things, if you're in the chat, I don't know if you guys saw my question. I'd love to have everyone introduce themselves. Please put your position in school, if you're comfortable doing that, in the chat, and Alyssa can kind of engage if you have questions. But I want you to answer this question. My school today is, and try to think of a word that you associate with your school today. I asked this question a couple months ago to schools, and it was really interesting to hear their feedback before COVID-19 and all of this went down. I'd love to hear your guys' response to this. If you want to jump into the chat here in Zoom and answer and finish that. My school today is blank. And we can kind of have a dialogue, and I'm sure your perspective has changed about your school today compared to what that looked like 2 months ago. You probably appreciate a lot of different things than you did previously. You're probably stressed as well. I know talking to a lot of educators, they're trying to teach and manage their work at home in addition to teaching their own kids. I'm dealing with that same stress, and it's not pretty. School does not look pretty, and we've got an appreciation for all of you educators during this time. But I'd love for you guys to think about that, whether you put your answer in here or not. But I would love to have you guys ponder that and kind of develop, that idea of, yeah, my school today is, innovative, remote, whatever that word is. Kind of think about that, and then think about what that was previously. I also wanted to share a story with you that, with a conversation I had with a principal. I'm actually going to do a live video chat on our social media tomorrow with this principal. She's out in Sacramento in a high poverty area at an academy school, Martin Luther King Technology Academy at Twin Rivers USD. And I had a conversation with her a couple weeks. She reached out and said, "Hey, I still want to be using social media. What different ideas do you have?" And we bounced some different things off each other. And she just wanted to connect and hear, "Hey, what are some other schools doing? Hey, here's some ideas I have with social media to stay connected." It's a middle school. She has students that are helping her create some content and working through some of those challenges. And so one of the things she told me was social media right now is the only way that she has connected to her students. So we're pretty lucky in Nebraska that we were able to continue operations, somewhat as normal as possible. Seward, Jill Johnson, I'm going to talk to her here, or talk about her in a little bit. They just kind of continued classes as usual, e-learning style. Well, in their situation out in Sacramento, they actually legally, because of some labor and union rules, aren't able to teach their students. So think about that for a second. If you weren't able to get on Zoom and see how your students are doing, get on Google Classroom and see how your students are doing. She has a lot of students that don't have access to technology, and or getting on those apps. Maybe they can get on their parents' social phones to get on social media or something like that, or grandparent. But she was telling me that social media literally was the only way she had to stay connected with these folks. And that really hit me, because here in at Heartland Community Schools, my kids are still able to do a Zoom with their teachers and stay connected and get packets, and they weren't able to do anything. And so she was being very strategic in doing lots of live videos early on and answering questions and making sure her students were safe in using social media to do that. I just wanted to bring that up to encourage you guys and be thankful for, if you guys are still able to operate and connect with your students. You should be extremely thankful during this time that you had that chance here in Nebraska, or if you're in Iowa or wherever that is. Be thankful, because some educators aren't even able to reach out to their students, and so they're relying on social media to do that. I wanted to bring up Jill Johnson. She's the assistant principal at Seward High School. If you're not familiar, you can follow them at Seward Blue Jays on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And we had a conversation with her, Ben and I, early on, because she wanted to continue the positive messages and stories. She already had the system built with student interns and students. All she needed to know was, what do I need to post? She had the system already built, and all she needed to do was ask her students a question. And we kind of, as we went through some different scenarios, we then kind of threw out this idea of asking students what it means to be a Blue Jay. Simply asking them that question, having them submit a video and posting that on their social media, because that question and that answer is a lot different now than it was 6 to 8 weeks ago. And so some really neat things. I think they've almost got one every day as more students submit videos, and it's really simple. All they're doing is putting a couple emojis here, putting this is what it means to be a Blue Jay, and letting the video connect with the audience. And I think video now more than ever is the best way right now. If you're doing any social media, you need to be posting video, whether it be a live stream with your superintendent communicating, your principal. Jill's also doing daily announcements with their admin team. So trying to have some type of routine and normalcy digitally, and doing that through video allows us to still connect. It's much more powerful than text or even a statement. it needs to be a video. And so I challenge all of you guys watching, if you haven't done any recorded video or any live video, I challenge you guys to do that, because we need to see that connection. We need to see that emotion, you know, that your superintendent, your principal, you guys as tech integration have. Your students need that from you right now. And Jill's a phenomenal example of that. And they're doing these fun kind of daily challenges in those videos to keep students engaged. You can see some great engagement there. And it gives something for the students to look forward to each day. Like, I know at this time, Mrs. Johnson and the admin team are going to have this video queued up ready for me to watch, right? And I know this is the hidden opportunity of student generated content, but I wanted to talk about some of these things that we're learning, and I'll share a little report that we put together that will be valuable to you as well as you think about social media for your school. But highly encourage you to check out what Seward is doing, a great example for us here in Nebraska to look at and implement. You guys could do the exact same thing. What does it mean to be and insert, you know, your school mascot in there and ask people for content? People are dying to send you stuff, send you things that are happening in their homes so that you can put it on their social media. I've seen it and I know it because I'm experiencing it. Our school here has not reached out and said, hey, send us photos. And so I'm posting them on my own and tagging them. And if they, at the point they want to start sharing that, they'll have that ready to go. But asking students to do different things, I think is absolutely okay. And I highly encourage you to do that. This is a time to be able to curate and bring your community together using social media, using video. I'll step off my soapbox there for a little bit. So this was one of the videos that actually was shared here, and I'll play it here. You guys can't hear the audio, I don't think, because I've got headphones on here. But this is a student that is down on his pottery wheel, and he's describing a favorite memory at state cross country last fall. And he's in his element, and this probably never would have been shared. And there's things happening and students sharing things that they're passionate about that maybe the rest of the community and other even peers students wouldn't have known they were interested in before. And so this provides a great opportunity for your students to showcase some of those fun things. I even saw Jill's daughter posted her out with her horse, right? And so those are types of things that we can still do when we're social distancing. There was a girl, you know, mentioned there that, or shown there with doing some volleyball outside. Those are still some things, and they're important to these students, and we want to highlight those. I think the student senior spotlights are great, but if you can do it in a video rather than a graphic and hear their words and reflection on this last year, I think that's absolutely the best way. Students like this are eager to share what they're thinking and their thoughts if you ask them. You have to ask them and ask your community. So let's dive a little bit now into thinking ahead and thinking, who knows what this fall looks like, but as you're planning maybe some different classes or different projects for this next school year, as you kind of have some time to maybe think about that, or you're thinking about this this summer and you want to get some students involved, I want to take you through a couple of different examples of the power and impact that student generated social media has at your school. And the first example comes from Pulaski, Wisconsin, at the high school there. Clay Reisler, who's a tech integration specialist, he was one of our early schools, along with Heather, who I mentioned, and Cameron and those folks, Josh Allen, who a lot of you may know, Craig Badura, and Clay's one of those guys that just has a passion for getting students involved in creating content. And I love sharing this example because this is the most powerful piece of content that we've come across that's been developed by a student and had a huge impact at their school. So as we all know, if you guys remember, vaping was a pretty big epidemic back in the fall, and still probably is, even though we're not talking about it as much. But it was a big deal at schools and having issues in schools with students vaping. And so Clay asked his student intern group or club, hey, who wants to take on this project of creating some social media content around some, you know, PSA type content for students to be aware of the negative effects of vaping? And a student raised his hand and he said, yeah, I'll take that project on. And that's all Clay said. Clay did not say, okay, go out and find a SpongeBob meme. I want you to put vaping isn't cool on that scroll and I want you to write some text copy for that and submit that in class intercom. That is not what Clay did. Clay just presented the idea because that came from Michelle Neese, who's one of our ambassadors down in Nashville, Tennessee. And for these meme ideas, the student came up with everything. And that's when I'm talking about student generated content. That's the power of it, is the student created it. It wasn't a step-by-step plan for the student to come up with this. They thought outside the box. They knew what students and the challenges and what would be relevant to students. And that was posting a fun meme. And so they threw this out there. It generated over 10,000 impressions, over 2,300 engagements. And that's what we're talking about, is making an impact on social media. And this came from a student, and they created another one with this car swerving off the interstate, going off the exit, and that generated almost 2,000 impressions. So over those two tweets, they got almost 14,000 impressions from their high school Twitter account, and it came from a student. The two tweets you see in the infographic on the left, they didn't know the principal was putting out some of his own social media content in regards to vaping, and he put this vaping cloud with no vaping on school grounds. Want to know more about why you should not vape, and put a link. Do you think any students clicked on that? Probably not a lot. Do you think they all engaged with the SpongeBob, whether they maybe stopped vaping or not? I don't know the answer to that. I don't have that data, but I do know not as many people saw that principal's word cloud with the negative type of tone that he presented in the tweet, and that was generated under 1,000 impressions. And I'm not calling out that principal. They had some fun with it. They actually presented this and put these graphics together and allowed me to use it here in a presentation that they did this last a couple months ago to their admin, and use this. And the one admin that created those was actually in the room they were presenting this to their admin to get a class approved for a social media class this coming up fall. And the other admin kind of laughed and started making fun of that principal, going, wow, you're not very good at social media compared to these kids, you know? And they ended up getting the class approved, partly because of the impact of this and all the work that they're doing at Pulaski High School. And so they had some fun kind of razzing that principal for, you know, giving him some grief for not being very good at social media. And that's the reality, is, you know, asking students to be a part of this, they have some great ideas. They're going to think outside the box. They're going to think differently. They're going to know, especially on topics like this, you know, what's maybe more relevant than posting a word cloud with a negative tone of copy. And you guys need to think about that. And that's my challenge to you, in addition to some of the other things. And then we've got Nick here, who, you know, he's got 11 followers on his social media, and he posted a graphic after their basketball game this winter. And this was the first post he had ever created in class intercom as a part of their marketing class up at Pulaski High School. And I was really impressed with this graphic. I think he used his phone. He stayed up late at night to post this. And little did he know, it generated over 2,500 impressions on their Twitter account, 566 engagements. They love looking at the analytics, because then that shows them, okay, this type of graphic with really simple copy with our hashtags works. Let's do more of that. If you're not looking at your analytics on your social media, you're doing yourself a disservice, and not showing that to your students, you're doing even more of a disservice to them, because they need to know the impact, right? Don't get caught up in all the vanity analytics and likes and retweets, but it helps. And it goes, you look at that and go, okay, we need more of this type of content, because that's resonating with our audience. That's just good marketing, right? And I highly encourage you guys to take screenshots of your analytics and send those to your students to encourage them, because they maybe don't know, they're not seeing those on their end. So I encourage you guys to do that. I had the chance this last spring or a couple months ago to go down to Phoenix to visit some of our school class intercom schools and visit with Lexus Prep. Lexus Prep is pretty unique. They're a very small school, and their audience and their students all have ADHD or some type of attention deficit disorder, and their school is specifically built for those students. I had a chance to go meet with them face to face to talk to them, because they have a social media class. And I was impacted a lot by having a conversation with these students, because they're no different than your students. they have a desire, they want to be graphic designers, they want to be gamers, they want to be video editors, they want to go on to college. They just learn a little bit differently. But the playing field for creating content has been leveled. I myself, I got an 18 on my ACT twice. I have trouble memorizing things and taking tests, but I love creating content, and I've had the fortunate opportunity to create 3 businesses that all revolve around creating content, and I cannot write very well. And so I married a writer. My mom was an English teacher, and I've surrounded myself with people like Alyssa, who's written blog posts, ghost written blog posts. You can't see her. Hopefully she's smiling right now, for me, for my social media, to share my story, because that's a reality. And so that was a cool part of walking in a classroom like this, where, hey, you're not a good writer, but you're good at art. Well, you can team up with someone that is a good writer. And these students are trying to create content just like everybody else. And I was impacted by visiting those types of students. So don't just think it's like, I work with a lot of schools that they go to that student council, they try to get the high achiever students. Sometimes we've had with schools, they haven't had success with those students because they just don't understand how to create content. And sometimes it is the students that maybe get in trouble or don't get the best grades. So you need to be thinking about those students as well. And so I kind of broke down this idea with them that is something, again, when you have events to promote, it helps, but you can still use this kind of thought process when creating content. And I did it with them to really simplify. So I couldn't go in super in depth with these students. I had to try to keep it really simple. And it was, when you think about your social media content, think about it in 2 different ways. And I got this from a principal in Illinois this last fall, and he said, hey, we think about our social media in 2 ways. It's promote and celebrate. And so I presented that to them to think about, hey, they had this event. It was a talent show coming up. Let's promote it ahead of time, because we can schedule posts in Class Intercom and promote it with graphics and video. And then afterwards, we can celebrate it. And we can take all the photos we have of the event and celebrate it. And I think that's just the best way when you're thinking about social media to explain it to students. When you have events, obviously we don't have a lot of events happening, like sporting events and things like that. But I think you can take this kind of thought process and even apply it to yourself if you're the one creating social media content, and especially when you're getting students involved, is promote and celebrate, and really stick to that process. Is, hey, what's things coming up? And then after things happen, how can we celebrate that event and show it to our community? Heather, I didn't tell you, I don't know if you knew you were included in this, but I did get it okay for your some of this content here. But I wanted to highlight this as well, and the power of student-generated social media, because when you have a graphic that goes out like this, you probably don't think about that student that actually created that and the conversation that happened behind it. And so this was a fun gift that went out during district basketball, which seems like an eternity ago, like a year ago, Heather. But this was a great tweet, and I wanted to highlight it, that a student created C. Milton 2020. And it was a fun little gift with some fun colors. And the backstory behind this, yeah, there's a great tweet. It got great engagement. Was this text message that Mrs. Callahan Heather got from the student at 9:04 p.m. on a weeknight, saying, "Hey, sorry, I know this is late, but I didn't quite get it done, but I just wanted to let you know and reach out because I got a great post coming out that I want to post out tomorrow, and I want to make sure you see it." And then Heather, you reply back and say, "Saw it and it's published or scheduled." And the student replies back, "Thank you. I've got some really great ideas coming up for tournaments and stuff like this that I want to showcase." I'm not sure about you guys as educators, but you're probably not getting text messages from your students at 9:04 at night with a conversation happening like this. So excited to get a piece of content out that they're reminding the educator to get it, to post it, right? And I think that just kind of sums up this idea and that power and impact that student generated social and giving these students this opportunity has. And we're seeing this across the country. when you kind of hand over the keys and give students the opportunity. And I'm sure Heather's got a little tear down her face because we don't have some of these opportunities right now because we don't have events. But I think we can channel that energy that we built around schools and our identity and events in some other things right now. And I think it's those types of videos that you see Jill Johnson doing. And I think that's the impact that we can have and get students still creating content. And I think we're going to see some really neat things come out of this when it comes to students creating content in the future. The last school I want to highlight is Aurora. You guys all know probably Craig Badura. He's a great educator there, tech integration specialist. He's had the fortunate opportunity to this last year, and I know it's been hard on him not being able to meet with these students either face to face. But he's got about 6 or 7 students that actually have a dedicated time each day to tell their school story. And I think I've seen content still going out by those students. I'm not sure it's required or they're getting graded on anymore. This is a seminar type of class at the end of the day. And these students just went all in. And it's been fun. I've had a chance to interact with them. We did some webinars, a webinar with them right before Christmas. And they're setting a phenomenal example for what it looks like to build a social media team at your school through a class. And one of the things they did was they really nailed down their design. And one of my pet peeves with schools and social media is just the inconsistency of their social media. I am at fault of that. You guys can see my slides here are not consistent. That's because we're going through a transition of Class Intercom's brand. We're getting rid of this blue actually and going to a different color scheme. We're updating the logo, updating our website that's coming next month. And so I've been updating all of our slides. Heather probably saw our slides for our webinar earlier today on self-care look totally different than this, and I kind of mashed it up, and that annoys me, and I was last second trying to switch those up. But these students on their own created their own brand guideline for their team and started self-imposing it and started looking at what other people were doing and going, man, we want to be better. We want to be the best school as far as consistency on social media that we can be. And so this was actually created by a student. And I asked her, hey, where did you, because I've got to look, anytime I create content, I don't know about you guys, I have to look at what other people are doing and then kind of iterate it on my own. And she designed this from scratch. And she straight up told me, she's like, I don't really think of myself as a graphic designer, and I don't really like looking at what other people do. I like kind of just create it my own. And she created this in Canva, and I just have to share it in all my presentations because it's so on point. They figured out their fonts that they want to use, their colors. So they've got the RGB code there and the official logo that they want to use. And the student that created that then was implementing it. So she was following up and even calling out other students saying, hey, like, I'm sorry, you put this post up, submitted it in Class Intercom, and you didn't use the right logo or right font. How cool is that? What a great learning opportunity. That's what's happening in the real world when Alyssa screws something up on Strive's content or NETA. We're addressing that. Sorry, Alyssa, I'm just messing with you right now because hopefully you're laughing. But we got to have that accountability, right? And so that's what's happening in these groups of students when they're creating content, is they're being held accountable. And I think there's no better learning experience that you can have when you have other students not calling out, but just keeping them accountable instead of it coming from the teacher. Mr. Badura, Craig, is not doing that. He's letting the students drive that. And he actually was going to be presenting with his students at NETA, and hopefully you guys can get him on a webinar to share a little bit more in depth of their program, because I think it's pretty powerful what they've done and the student ownership that they've had, which leads to this idea of these press passes. So they get I think they have a no phone policy out in the hallway or in their classrooms. They got to put them in a little, pouch thing when they walk in the classroom. And so in order for the admin and other teachers to kind of bring awareness to these students that have this privilege to document their story at their school, they create these press passes with our lanyards on there so that they know when they're walking around the hallway with the iPad to shoot their Pie Face Showdown series, which if you haven't seen is so awesome. And they know, hey, they're part of the social media team. They're good to go with having their devices out to create content. And that's just a small little thing that we've been trying to get other schools to implement, obviously, if you're in the school building. So just some really great learning opportunities. Obviously, you can hopefully see the passion that I have for this, because I know I wish I would have had this opportunity when I was in school. I was in yearbook and didn't take advantage of that opportunity. I love designing things and creating videos, and now trying to teach my kids that. They put together a little video this last week using this app called Splice, and adding sound effects and things like that. Just great opportunities when you are able to work with other people and create content. The digital citizenship piece is layered in there of, what does that copy look like in writing? What's my audience thinking about? The leadership skills. We're going to be talking about that here in the coming weeks on Class Intercom. So stay tuned on that, and some digital leadership things we can be thinking about during COVID-19. The communication, right? That student saying to the other student, hey, like, this graphic isn't to the standard we want it to be at. That takes a lot of guts for a student to say that to another student. And I don't know a lot of other classes that's happening. It happens in maybe some group projects, but I'm just a firm believer of that when you're building that team. And then one of the pieces of feedback we got from students from what they've learned through this experience and being a part of this is time management. So there's some things you have to think about when you're putting out content. And Alyssa and Julie and Heather, you and anybody else, Justin, I see DeWitt's on here, who's got students helping and their staff helping, is, hey, especially now with COVID-19, like, you need to get information out in a timely manner. People want it now. And so students need to understand that. And, when you're thinking about this before or pre-COVID-19, but even now, as you guys as administrators and tech folks, being timely and thinking about that, thinking about your audience for that. So just some really great learning opportunities for you guys and your students for that. When you're thinking about planning for this upcoming school year and whatever that looks like, these are kind of 3 ways to kind of structure this if you're going to get students involved. And that's, you've got to have some type of class is really great, and or a club. So that's Craig's got the class format really nailed down, but you've got to have some structure. The club model is what Clay had and is moving towards. I would say, Heather, you're kind of in that boat with the club because you don't get to meet with them regularly, or an internship program as well. So giving them classroom credit for this, I think, is really important for students. So there's some skin in the game for them. And if they want to go into this as a career, it's a phenomenal portfolio builder and resume builder for these students to be able to have this opportunity. But they need structure to create, right? They need some type of framework to give them. The SpongeBob meme is absolutely the best example of that, of going, hey, I've got this project idea. You guys go run with it. So Clay gave that student the structure and the framework, and the student created within that, right? And sometimes you got to rein them in and go, hey, that's not quite on point of the brand and image we want our school to have. But it's a great learning opportunity to have those conversations with students. And one of the things we've done this last semester is bring on Mitch Fisher, who I've had a chance to know for a couple of years because of Heather, actually, who nominated him for a Digital for Good award. And we had a chance to go out to Twitter headquarters a couple of years ago to have him present on a project that he implemented at his school at Northwest High School. And now we've had a chance to, it's come full circle. He's actually now an intern creating content for us. And we've launched this series called CGTV, which is Content Generation TV. And he's out there promoting and helping students think of themselves as content creators. He's got I think now 6 or 7 episodes that are on classintercom.com that you can check out, and please send to your students so that they can see what he's having to deal with and taking online classes. He's in the same boat as a lot of your students, and he just got a great perspective. We do an Instagram Live every Monday at noon called Motivation Monday, because he actually started a Snapchat account called Motivation Mitch in high school, which was one of the reasons why he got that award, because he saw all of his classmates really down and depressed about going back to school after Christmas break, and he used Snapchat to promote positivity and just short little motivational messages. And so we're kind of taking that and doing that every Monday on our Instagram account. at Class Intercom to get people excited for the week and encouraged for the week, and some things we've reflected on the past week. So be sure to check that out. It's a resource for your students. We're going to continue to grow that. We want to build some, not curriculum, but just kind of some educational resources around those videos that students can engage in. We're relying on you guys as educators to help us implement that at the school. So, you know, one of the things and challenges with all of this is how do I do it, right? And this is not a sales pitch for Class Intercom. You guys can do this without a tool. You can hand over the sticky note. It's whatever, however you want to structure this. I just want students to have the opportunity, right? But asking that question, what if you could collaborate with everyone without losing that control? And that's what Class Intercom gives you, and gets admin, staff, even students to be able to work together to share that story on social media consistently and unified. And so you're able to go in and create content, submit it, have it be moderated and published. We're unlimited users. You can edit roles, so students can't, there's no way they can get access to passwords and things like that. So if you're interested, I've got a Let's Connect page here at the end if you want to learn more about how you guys can use the tool. But that's not really what today is about. It's just this idea and this shift in thinking about, yeah, what if students could help create some content for our school? What would that look like? And we've got all of those examples for you guys to be able to lean on. So as we wrap up here, I'm losing my voice here. So I want to encourage you guys, if you do handle the communications and social media at your school, we've got a great report from a survey we did of over 60 schools across the country that gave us feedback on how they've handled communications during COVID-19, top priorities, concerns, some live information, and then several examples. You can find that at this URL, classintercom.com, social at a distance. And we've got our webinars. We just did that self-care one that'll be uploading after this, that PDF, so some resources. We do a podcast every week addressing this new normal, blog posts. So we just want to have this hub for communications folks, educators who are dealing with, you know, this pandemic during this time, and have a community to go to when it comes to communication and social media at your school. So classintercom.com, and type in that URL there. You can find it on our homepage. So also want to encourage you guys, we're doing a live chat with Aaron Davis. I don't know if any of you guys know him or he's been to your school. He's a inspirational, encouraging, he doesn't like to be called probably a motivational speaker, but he's high energy. We're going to do a live stream with him tonight on our Facebook, Hope, and YouTube and Twitter at 7:30. And if you want to get hyped up, if you're struggling getting up in the morning like I am, I had to go to Starbucks this morning through the drive-through to get my energy level going because I was up late editing these slides. He's going to give you that dose and encourage you to be a leader and lean in during this time. And we're excited about that conversation. That'll be archived if you don't check it out live. I'm also doing a live chat with that principal I mentioned tomorrow at noon. We're using a cool new app called StreamYard to be able to stream out to that, to have conversations for that. Also on the Strive side, our team's killing it with helping schools with graduation. We just got a text message of trying to figure out how to do graduations with four-wheelers and live streaming that. So we're active in that and doing some neat stuff with the NSAA when it comes to state journalism and streaming a show there. So lots of fun stuff. If you want to connect, if you feel overwhelmed right now with social media content creation, please reach out. Would love to be a resource to you guys. There's my email, phone, website, Twitter handle, and I know NETA is a phenomenal resource and is that community, right? And that's why I wanted to come on and share what we're passionate about during this time. And NETA is able to bring us together during this time and use their platform. Even though we couldn't see each other face to face, they've got a great platform and community to keep us encouraged during this time. And I'm excited about what they have coming up. And I'll hand it over to you, Julie, if you've got some updates, and Alyssa, anything you want to share with people as we close out.
Yes, thank you, Taylor. That was awesome. I think a couple things I took away. For one was the branding sheet. I love that. We use that for NETA as well, and that was a game changer when I started really trying to make graphics that look consistent. And I really liked about what you said about the promote and celebrate too. That's a really easy way to think about things without having to make too complicated on, well, what would even be a good post? Well, does it promote your school or does it celebrate your school? And if it falls under one of those two categories, it's a go for
Post
it.
it. Post
Yes,
it.
post it, send it.
Get it out, send it, right? Like, and that's a great point.
Yeah, so thank you so much for being on. I think we're going to wrap it up for today, but we are going to be doing these webinars all the way through August, actually. We have 10 coming up, and they're going to be every other Thursday at noon. We love having people on here live. Thank you guys so much for using the chat feature. But you can definitely expect more content like this coming up. We should have the new registration link ready for you guys in the next couple of days. So thanks so much for joining us, everybody. We look forward to seeing you again.